What's up, you guys? We're Trends again. We went live and then went unlive, so you know it's all good. But welcome to the weekly live show. I am Coach Courtney.
I am Coach Brandon.
And we are three of the coaches inside of the Diet Ditchers. So welcome. We're glad that you're here. We do this every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, so mark your calendars. We're always going to ask a question early in the week and then answer that question. But if you have questions regarding anything that we cover, let us know. Okay, so give us a hello, give us a hi when you guys jump on. Wow. So yeah, all right, so big announcements, a couple big announcements. So biggest thing today is we're going to have a secret word that we're going to drop somewhere in the middle of this. And if you're live and you're interactive, because this is way more fun to actually talk to you guys versus talking to ourselves. We do that a lot, but you know, actually getting to talk to you guys, we're going to pick a winner at the end. That winner will get a 30-minute coaching session with us. So what you can do in that session, you can get all your questions answered about, you know, mindfulness. You can get them answered about, you know, knee pain, exercise, nutrition, whatever you want to know. You've got all of our attention for 30 minutes. So be live, say hello when you're here, and if you watch the replay, give us a hashtag replay. All right, guys, so if you've been part of this group since December, when it started, the group used to be called Diet Busters, okay? So we did the name Diet Busters because the whole goal of this was, you guys, was to actually bust the diet myths and get you guys outside of dieting and really get you into a place of understanding nourishment and holistic health and moving in that direction. So I think it worked, but it wasn't exactly working, right? So a lot of people came into this group, well, some people came into this group thinking that it was going to be recipes and it was going to be diet advice and it was going to be sort of that place, which is really not the goal, right?
Well, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, when you put the label diet on something, there's association of like, give me the quick fix and give me the Band-Aid on the bullet hole unicorn solution to my issue, right? And so what we want to do, you guys, our mission is to help you transform your life, right? Like for so many people in the group, I would gauge upwards of like 90 to 95%, if not everyone in the group, has been on some sort of diet train and roller coaster constantly, right? Where you feel like you're trying to do all the right things, you're not getting the results, you constantly hit the reset button, and you end up frustrated. And you know, the reason why we can say that is because we've been coaches for 20 years and we've seen that repetitive habit with thousands of people over the years. And so our goal and mission, you guys, is to literally stop that cycle. All right, we're here to tell you, like, there's information that we can give you that can change your life right now in this instance. But there's no magic solution to what it is out there, right? Like there's always the quick fix guru out there that's going to try to sell you the quick formula or the one recipe, and that's not what this group is meant to be.
So you guys, what we're here to do is the diet industry is a $60 billion industry. We're here to get you out of the diet cycle, out of diet culture. We're going to talk today a lot about food and labels and that kind of stuff, but we really want to get you guys to understand that, like, if you're in this group, you understand that there's deeper things to holistic health, right? So we have 4 pillars that we talk about all the time: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So that's what we cover, right? None of that is diet culture, right? Do we believe in good nutrition? Do we believe in fueling your body? Absolutely we do. But we also believe in fueling your mind and your soul and raising your vibration and really making you like the healthiest, happiest version of you that is not stuck in fear and diet culture and I have to and I should and all of that language, right? So hopefully that makes more sense. So if you feel like, wow, that's totally not me, like I want the next unicorn diet or the magic pill, we appreciate you. You know, feel free to stick around, but if that's why you're here, then you're not going to probably get the information you're looking for, okay?
And we'll welcome you back with open arms when you come back full circle.
Yeah, and we promise you guys, if you ditch your diet, you can still get results, and you'll get lasting results, and you'll have joy that comes from the inside and health that comes from the inside, and that's our bigger mission, okay? So, anything else on that?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. But this is for you, you guys, if you're ready to look a little bit deeper, start to understand yourself, understand your body, really, you know, take the time to look inside and to make those changes and create the best version of yourself. So just a reminder, give us a hello when you guys jump on. We love to know that you're here. So, all right, you guys. So the title for this week is Labels and Language. So Jen, who's our cohort, partner in crime, posted a picture, I think on Monday, and the picture, there was 2 pictures, a top picture and the bottom picture, and it said, when you see these 2 pictures in one word, what comes to mind? And for a lot of us, right, like, hey, Tabitha, we couldn't do one word, because, you know, that's kind of hard. But essentially it was, you know, tomatoes and salmon and nuts on the top and some other stuff. And then on the bottom, there was pizza and fried chicken and I think like onion rings or something. And so what we really want to dive into, you guys, is that language is so important. Okay, so I'm gonna actually read to you guys some of the things that you guys said back to us, right? And so think about what of this resonates with you and what doesn't. Okay, so I'm just gonna read them and they'll talk about them. So somebody said guilt for the bottom one, good versus bad, allowed versus not allowed, whole versus processed, healthy versus unhealthy, bleh versus yum, heart healthy and soul healthy, and fuel versus aches and inflammation. Okay? I don't know. Say anything about that?
No, I think it's important, you guys. So we've talked about this before. If you've been in this group, we've talked about this before, is what you associate to certain things is what you're going to get out of that, right? It is perception equals reality. Whatever you perceive is going to be the reality for you. And that even happens with what you eat and how your body internally digests and absorbs and does all those kind of things. Not to say that you can envision like having, you know, a gigantic thing of fried onion rings and everything else and envision it being like whole hearty fruit and you're going to be able to have the nourishment from that, right? But when you put associations to certain things, because we've seen it, right? Like if we label things bad, and this is what usually happens with most dietary components is, well, that's bad food. Well, if you eat that food, even if that isn't in a time of celebration, if you eat that food and it conflicts with the diet that you're on and you end up consuming that, not only are you labeling that bad, what you either consciously or subconsciously label yourself as is you are a bad person, right? Like we've seen it over and over and over. And so it's our associations to that. And so then we end up feeling guilty. We end up feeling bad. We end up feeling, you know, the unhealthy elements of those things. Now, I'm not going to say it again. I'm not going to say that having massively fried food and everything else is going to lead to long-term health, but you can also couple that up. And if my association is, even if I'm eating all organic, you know, whole food that's specific to you, but my association to that is anxiety, overwhelm, you know, anger, frustration, whatever non-high functioning emotions that can be related to that, my internal system's still not going to digest and absorb those nutrients as effectively as I possibly can.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing when we start to think about this, you guys, is that when we talk about food, right, we get we ask this question a lot, and we get the question a lot, why do you eat food? And we get the answer like, oh, it's just fuel. And I love y'all, but that's BS. Like, none of us eat food just for fuel. Like, it just isn't true. Hey, Misty. Like, we eat for different reasons, and that's okay, right? We've been drilled into us, like, diet culture. You eat to lose weight. You eat for health. You eat for, like, I'm sorry, but that's true. Like, if I'm eating a cookie, I'm eating it because it tastes good, and that's okay, right? But what I want you guys to think about is that, like, why do you eat food, and what are those emotions? And so when we think about food, that's way more than just the nutrients that are in the food, but the feelings and the emotions that go with it, right? So if you've been here, you know, if you're new, you may not know my story. If you've been around, I had an eating disorder. I had disordered eating for 25 years, and I spent every evening thinking about, was I good? Was I bad? Did I cheat? Like, what happened? I mean, I did all of that in my head. And I will tell you guys that on the days that I was good, I was like, oh, I feel good. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel skinny, right? And on the days that I didn't stay on track or that I had bad food, I would literally be like, I'd lay in bed and I'd feel guilty and I'd feel shame and I'd think about what I'd have to do to burn it off the next day. And I would know in my mind that I would wake up in the mirror and I would look worse the next morning. And you know what happened? I looked worse the next morning. But do you know why it happened? Because I chose that feeling. I chose that outcome based on how I felt and based on language that I was telling myself, right? When you say words, it creates an emotion, right? If I say, I love you, that creates a different emotion than if I say, I hate you, right? I don't like saying that. I don't like saying that out loud, right? But so if you're like, I love myself, I was good today, what kind of emotions are you going to create? And if you're like, oh, I had pizza, it was so bad, like, how are you going to feel, right? So I want you guys to understand that, like Brandon said, that subconscious association with the words they create an emotion, which creates a thought, which creates another emotion, and then you get in this cycle, right? And so when we're labeling things, we want to be really aware that we're not labeling them with the good and the bad, right? Like, well, that's good and that's bad. No, like there are things that are more healthy and there are things that are less healthy. That is totally true. But can there be a time and place for all of those things in your life based on what you're doing? It can 100%.
Well, I think it's important to also, we were talking to our newest group that's getting ready for the 12-week shift is, we were talking to them yesterday regarding essentially also being realistic to why you're making the decisions, right? Because on the element of, well, I'm having this, but am I enhancing my experience or am I numbing my experience, right? Because I can have some cookies, but I can also use them in terms of numbing my experience and changing my state, right? Like I can have all those things of, what am I labeling as, but also it's understanding of why are you doing what you are doing, right? Because I think when we work down this path is, helping to understand of, okay, you're doing this action. Why? Okay. And then at the same time frame, what are you coupling that up with? How are you talking to yourself? How you're labeling yourself, right? Like how are you, not only what are you saying, how are you saying it? Right? Because the tonality, the aggressiveness, all those things are going to change how I interpret and how I feel, right? And so if I can understand those things, not only does this change essentially literally how you digest in all the other elements of food, but also this is also how you create motivation for yourself, how you create drive for yourself, how you kind of get yourself out of stuck positions, how you create, sadness and overwhelm for yourself. Like all of these things are going to have different intensity for you. And so if you can understand these things as opposed to like, I don't know, I just do that. Well, no, you're letting yourself off the hook as opposed to seeing like, well, why am I doing that? What language am I using? Right? Like we talk about that in one of our modules as we go through this, is that that's one of the elements that creates your state, right? Like when you say certain things with certain intensity, that creates a much different internal feeling, right? Like I'm so freaking angry. I'm a little bit upset. Right? Like the result is the same, but internally the chemical responses are two completely different things, right? So it's being able to understand if what you say carries weight with it.
Yeah, and I want you guys to think about this outside of food, right? So when we talk about language, like language is so important. And we talk to our kids about this all the time. The way that they say things. We're like, oh, you ready for a good day? Yeah, it's going to be okay. I'm like, what is that? You want to get excited? Have a good day, right? But so what do you think about this? Braden also asked the question. I thought it was really, really interesting. That he said, do you think you're an athlete? And the numbers were like ish, but a lot of people said no. I don't think I'm an athlete, which is very interesting. And we own a gym. We have a brick and mortar gym, so we get this. But I want you to think about with that language, there's also an identity or a non-identity, right? So I just want you to think about this. Most of you work out 2, 3, 4 times a week, right? There's a lot of, Orange Theory people. There's a lot of Peloton. There's CrossFit in here. So like we are all athletes. Like if you're doing those workouts, you are an athlete. But here's where it changes. If you're like, well, I'm not an athlete. Okay. If you were an athlete, what would you do differently, right? If you were an athlete, would you show up differently? If you're like, I'm an athlete training for a sport, would that have a different feeling and land differently in your body than I'm just going to the gym to lose weight?
Well, because that was the biggest thing that, we kind of followed up like, okay, well, why? Right? Like, well, no, there's no way in the world I'm an athlete. Okay, why? What's your daily activities look like? What are you doing here? I mean, I've been very privileged to work with some very high professional athletes in my tenure as a coach. And I can tell you the people that come into our gym every single day usually do more than the millionaire professional athlete that I've been around, right? But we associate ourselves and what we identify ourselves as because, yet again, whether it's language, whether it's your emotions, whether it's your identity, what you label and what you say is true, right? And so I think what Court's trying to kind of guide us along here is what would change on your daily activities and your habits if you started looking at yourself? Maybe you'll sign up for a race or you'll sign up for something, or maybe you'll never do that and you never have any interest, which isn't necessarily important or not. But what would change in your daily activities and how you would show up for yourself if you started looking at yourself and treating yourself like you were an athlete, right? Would you go to bed earlier? Would you maybe talk to yourself differently? Would you make sure that you get more fruits and vegetables in your nourishment, right? Would you make sure you get plenty of water instead of, well, I'm a dieter that is constantly trying to lose weight, right? Like just think about those two things. Your actions can be the exact same thing, right? Like I'm trying to aspire towards creating strength and creating performance and creating longevity. Well, I'm trying to lose weight. The actions behind those two things are usually pretty much similar.
The intention.
But the intention behind that and the language I say behind that, two way different things, right? Like even me just saying that, I want to go back to the gym right now of like, you know what? I want to see if I can actually do that, and I want to try to move myself in a direction, right? Where that's way more inspiring than it is like, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym today and I'm going to try to lose some weight. Because that dial doesn't move, and you can't even control that dial because there's at least 10 other things that are outside your control, but most of the time we don't know those things, right? So it's on the side of what you label, how you speak to yourself, all those things are going to direct where you go. I mean, the thing we always roll back to with people like, I don't feel motivated, right? I'm 14 days into this new journey that I'm going on. I don't feel motivated. Well, what language? What's your identity? What are you using behind these things? Is it congruent to you, right? Like it's much bigger than like the Rocky montage of like, get up off your butt and go do something.
Well, and I think it's like, so we go back to that language, right? It's, am I an athlete? So I know in our world, right? Like we say training, like we're going to train today. Like I don't say I got to go work out today or I have to go exercise today, but
gym.
I got to, yeah, right. we say we got to go to the gym a lot because we work there, but it's the language, right? And so as Brandon was telling the story, I was thinking about my life, you know, before we met. So 15 years ago. And we met at a gym. I know that's ironic, but there was that stupid stair stepper, and it was like, well, if I want to lose weight, then I got to go walk on this stupid this stair mill for 30 or 40 minutes so that I can lose weight. And I dreaded it. And I was like, I don't want to go do that. That's no fun. And then I had to go lift for 2 hours, right? I had all these rules. Rules are also language we want to get away from. But I had all these rules of things that I needed to do. No, I wasn't motivated. It was boring. I wasn't training for anything. I grew up as an athlete. I didn't feel like an athlete anymore. I was just training to try to hope that my jeans would fit. And at some point you're like, I'll just buy bigger jeans. Like, this is no fun. And like, I literally remember seeing him, and he was training clients doing CrossFit. And I was like, that looks fun. And like, that was the thing, was that being an athlete and doing things and pushing your body, it's more about what your body can do and not what it looks like. And when you can make that shift of performance and driving for something and training for something, it changes, right? And I know a lot of you guys have gone through this as you went from sort of a normal gym into something else where there's coaches and there's people and there's energy. And it's like, that's way more fun than, I gotta go down to my basement. And we trained in our basement during COVID, and it was not nearly as much fun than when we train, you know, with people. So think about that language. But the next thing I really want you guys to think about that we hear a lot, I should do it, I have to do it, I need to do it.
I'm gonna try to do it.
I'm gonna try to do it. I know I'm supposed to do it. Mm-hmm. Who on earth is ever gonna do that if that's your language, right? If I'm like, hey, Brandon, I need you to take out the trash. How motivated is he?
I'll try to do that. I'll try to get around to that.
How motivated is he to take out the trash?
Well, I always think that it's kind of like, you know, when you, like, for us, we always went on, like, family trips, right? Like, there was several years that my family's originally from Iowa. We drive, you know, from Colorado to Iowa, really beautiful country across Nebraska and Iowa. Nothing against those places, just very flat and cornfields, right? And then we do the same thing going down to Florida, drive across Texas for 3.5 days. We're about the same thing.
All right, guys, hold on. The secret word for today, we're going to drop the secret word. It's road trip. So drop in road trip right now. We're going to pick one of you to get a free one-on-one. So drop a road trip so that we know you guys are here.
You know, us kids, we'd be in the back seat of, oh, can we stop and go do that? Can we stop and go do that? Hey, can we stop over there? You know, they got the world's largest dinosaur egg off the side of the road. Can we go stop there, right? And like, my parents, all they want to do is like, we got to get there. I'm tired of driving. Let's get there till tomorrow, right? And the word they'd always say is, we'll see, right? We'll see about it. And as a kid, after you hear that a couple dozen times, you know, the second you hear we'll see, they have no intention at all of starting and turning off the road, right?
Maybe.
Right? But it's the same thing of what we use our language on when we're trying to describe our things, right? Like I promise you, for 90% of the posts that get on here, y'all could read each other's posts and be like, that's not going to happen. They don't have any, there's no, energy behind that. They have no intention at all of drying that. I know I should have more fruits and vegetables. I know I should try to drink more water, right? Like, there's no emotion. There's nothing compelling behind that, right? Like, literally, so there's portions of your brain that look for incongruencies, right? Like, it's the same thing of, have you ever had a conversation with somebody that they say, you know what, back in my single days, right? Back in the single days of yeah, I had a great time. And, you know, it was the worst date of all time. And you know what, yeah, that was so great meeting and talking to you and everything else. I'll call you again, right? We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. That was a great time. And you know deep down of we're never going to talk again, right? But you don't want to say that thing, right? But it's the same thing we do to ourselves. Well, as long as I say I'm going to try, right? Well, really all I'm doing is giving myself an exit door off to the right of like, well, I have the intention, but I really don't feel like doing it. So I'm going to go that direction, right? So what we try to help people understand is your life is based off of the decisions that you make, not the conditions, right? It's the decisions you make, not your conditions. And when you make a decision, it's not marrying to the how, right? Like the how will always change, right? Like whether it's a dietary component, whether it's going to the gym at 6 a.m. or 6 at night, like all the hows change. But it's also on the sense of when you make a decision, I mean, from the Latin, decision is to cut off. It's literally to make a decision and you cut yourself off from any other route to go back, right? Like it's taking the island, you burn the boats, and if you don't take the island, you're screwed, right? Like it's that same thing. So it's when you make a decision and to really come from a place of I want to do this, and I know it's not a should. It's I'm determined, and I must go through with this, and I get to go through with this, right? And so it's creating that internal passion for yourself and discovering those things. But when you say I should, I'll try, I'll do those things, I can tell you right now from working with thousands of people, and I know you're your own unicorn and you're your own snowflake and everything else, and you're unique, but we're all human beings. And when I say those things the same way, if I'm going to try, I'm going to do these things, the likelihood of actually me following through decreases massively.
Yeah, and I think, and just, it's interesting on this, so with the group that just joined us, right, we're talking about awareness this week. And so be aware of your language. I mean, just think about what you say, what you do. Like, oh, I have to get up. I have to do this. I have to go to the gym. Oh, I don't want, like just think about that. What if you shifted the language? Does it change your energy? Because it does. So everything in this world has energy, right? This is where I go down the woo-woo road, but everything has energy. Everything you eat, everything you say, every emotion you feel, every place in the world, everything has energy, right? And so if you want to raise your energy and raise like your vibration in this world, start changing your language, right? So I did this yesterday. I was kind of in a funk. I didn't get much sleep, and I was like, all right, I can catch it, right? I'm like, I got to do something about this. So I took a little nap at like 9 a.m. because I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up, I did some breath. I chose to release things, and then I wrote down gratitude, right? And I wrote down all the things that I was grateful for. We do the things, grateful for Brandon, I'm grateful for my kids. And then I wrote down, I'm grateful that I have 4 loads of laundry to do because that means that I have all of these clothes and I have an amazing family, right? I literally wrote down things that drive me crazy. I wrote that I was grateful for them, right? Because that changes the energy around the thing, right? So if you really want to love the gym, talk about how excited you are to go to the gym. Think about how strong your body is, how amazing it is. I wrote a post about this yesterday, but the way that you speak to yourself really does matter. And the way that you speak about the things that you're doing and about the things that you're shifting, don't focus on what you don't want. Focus on what you're creating and what you desire, right? I mean, it's funny, we're thinking about language, we're just talking about road trips. I'm like, how many of us right now went down either a memory in our minds about like a road trip we went on when we were kids because we said the word road trip, or how many of us are thinking like, wow, I should be going on a road trip with my kids. Language is so, so powerful. So take this week and just pay attention, right? What goes through your head? What are the people around you saying to you? Because that is so important. If you're like, I'm raising my vibration, my energy's going to be amazing, I'm staying really positive, and I'm not saying you have to be like sunshine and rainbows all the time, but if you're doing that and you start to notice like, I got Debbie Downers everywhere. Like everybody at work is like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here. People at the gym are complaining, your family's complaining, they don't like the dinner you cooked them. How hard is it to stay positive, right? So can you help the people in your world shift? Or can you find a new people that are going to change the way that you are? Because if you're continuously around that energy, around that language, it is going to wear on you.
Well, and that's not even like, I know Courtney said woo-woo. That's not just woo-woo. That's like literal been proven science, right? Like when you enter into a room within, I think Harvard discovered this, right? Like don't ask for the I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially I think Harvard actually did a study on this that found within 5 or 10 minutes when you walk into a room and there's connection there, you actually sync up brain waves with the people around you, right? And so if you're functioning, and when we're talking about vibration, like Einstein identified these things years ago, all we are is atoms, right? Like we're floating atoms in space. And if you don't if you don't believe this, I think always a good example is have you ever walked into a room or had somebody walk into the room and they don't say a word to you, but you look at them and you're like, there's something about that person. There's something about them that, either I want to talk to or I got to go say hi to them, or there's something about them that I feel more inspired by. Or else, have you ever had somebody walk into the room and be like, I just don't like that person.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but they just rub me the wrong way. Well, have you ever talked to that person? Well, no, I don't know, but there's something I get a feeling, right? Well, all that is energy, right? And so just think of that in terms of what you are doing internally to yourself, right? Like, how are you identifying yourself? Where you look at it, you're like, all those things make massive differences of how you show up on a day-to-day basis. So it's not just woo-woo. Like, this is proven.
And woo and science go really well together,
Yes.
which is why we go really well together, because I'm woo and he's science. But I want you to think about that. One last thing, you guys, is that when you're thinking about language, what are you saying to yourself, right? Just pay attention to it, because I know when I was really struggling with my body image, like every day I would look in the mirror and what would I do? I'd focus on the parts of my body I didn't like. Well, what am I going to see then? Only the parts of my body I didn't like. And I finally started being like, whatever, I don't like that part of my body. I'm going to move on. I'm going to focus on something that I do like, and I'm going to say positive things, and I'm going to think about how strong and powerful I am, right? And I guarantee you guys that will change, right? And this is the other thing is like, you don't have to push away the thoughts you don't desire. Just bring love into the scenario, right? You don't have to try to get rid of the negative emotions. Just bring love, bring the positive emotion, because it really is the most powerful energy and the most powerful language. So
one last thing on that, you guys, is I think it's also important to understand have you ever misinterpreted something? Right? Because, has somebody ever, Lord knows this never happened with us, is like you have somebody say something based off it's a term of endearment, right? Like they meant it with the absolute best intentions, coming from love, right? But you receive that as like you're just being so condescending and you're just being a jackass, rude person. Not saying this has ever happened to us, right? But there's that misconception, mislabel that happens, right? And so in emotion, right, when we're talking about emotions in language, right, like an emotion, all it is a sensation that it's energy, and it's a sensation that you label, right? Like that's all an emotion is something that comes through your body and you label. And once you label it, now you start to basically feel that emotion and that sensation tenfold, right? Well, we do the same thing all the time. Like I know there's been times in my life where I completely mislabel and misinterpret what that sensation is, but I create that, right? And so it's being able to understand of like what's happening all around you and what's happening internally. Because if you can take a step back oftentimes and kind of see of like, well, actually that's not even true. Like I'm completely misanalyzing and misinterpreting the scenario on here. Well, what if I interpret that? Because we do this all the time with athletes, right? Like I'm so nervous, I'm so anxious. Well, you don't understand that anxiousness and nervousness is very similar to excitement physiologically, right? So what if you just transform of like, I'm so excited, I'm ready to do this. Same internal feelings, but the reaction of like, okay, now I'm ready to go tackle the field, two completely different things, right? So it's also being on the sense of like, okay, not only what's going on, what language, what are you labeling, and what are you associating those things to?
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we went a little bit over today. Oh, no, we're on time. All right. So I hope that helped. We'd love to hear your feedback, your ahas, any of that. What we'll do is after the live, I saw all your road trips. We'll put it into a little, I don't know what it's called. There's an app that like shakes up the names, and we'll post who won. Huh?
The raffle?
It's like a raffle. But anyway, it puts the names in and it spits out an answer, because I hate choosing, because then anyway. So we appreciate you guys. Let us know your questions. If you watch the replay, drop us a hashtag or replay. Like I said, we're here every single week at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And again, congratulations to everyone that joined the 90-day shift. If you missed out on this round, keep your eyes open. We're going to start a wait list for the next round. We're so excited to start that journey with all of you amazing people that are joining us. And we appreciate you being here. If you found value, tag a friend, add some friends to the group, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.